Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Sean Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. We started this show back in 2017 with a deep belief that every business needs to be digital first, even brick and mortar businesses, especially brick and mortar businesses, and that every business is in the hospitality business, whether they know it or not. We believe in 4 C's: content, commerce, communication, and community. And our job is to find the best leaders in the hospitality space, the best leaders in the technology space, and give you guys a seat at the table. Today, I am so fired up. I have been a fan on the outside of this brand for a while now. I've seen what they've done at shows. I've seen what they've done with some of the logos that we admire and respect. And I'm so excited to get the 86 Repairs origin story. Daniel Estrada, CEO and co-founder. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Really great to be here.
So for me, I know what 86 Repairs means, but I would love for you to give our audience the quick origin story of 86 Repairs. What do you do for the industry?
Yeah, happy to share that. We've been excited to be on this journey for 7 years now, and the company started in a very simple way, like a lot of companies do, with someone living the pain of repairs and maintenance. My co-founder Joe worked in the food equipment business, and he struggled constantly with his customers. Being able to manage repairs and maintenance. He saw his customers struggling. He was struggling as an OEM. His company makes all the bread slicers for Panera and Einstein's Bagels and a lot of big grocery retailers. And he saw how hard it was for them to manage service, not just for the equipment that he was selling them, but for all of the equipment across the restaurant. And so he came to me one day. We were just kicking around ideas, and he said, there's something here. I don't know what kind of business we can build, but there's a problem here and a pain point that's worth digging into. And so we spent 6-7 months just talking with operators and understanding how people were solving these problems, right? How R&M was being handled by restaurant operators. And I heard the same thing over and over again. The first time I sat down with an operator, I remember it like it was yesterday. We were in Atlanta with an executive chef and partner at a great hospitality group there. And I said to him, first question I asked him was, what's it like managing repairs and maintenance in your restaurants? And he said, it's a fucking pain in my ass. Those were his exact words. And that I heard that over and over again from everybody. So we knew there in the early days there was something there.
Yeah, I love the fact that I get to have a conversation about pain points. I mean, I didn't think that the show started, actually, it was called Behind the Smoke. And the reason why it was behind the smoke, it was behind the bullshit. I went to school. I thought I was going to take some business classes. And, frankly, the professors, they didn't inspire me. They were teaching out of a textbook. I didn't kind of buy into what they were saying. But then they would bring an entrepreneur on stage that would tell me their journey, their struggles, how they made it. And it was the real shit. And it was like, repair and maintenance, it sucks. Like, it sucks for the industry. It's not just our industry, but especially in a restaurant. We can't run a great restaurant if we're having to deal with something that's broken.
Exactly.
Shift. Can you share a little bit more about these pain points that started coming up and up? And once you hear these coming out of restaurant operators' mouths, how do you build from that? Like, where do you go from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, that was a lot of the early conversations that we had. A lot of the early research was just understanding how is this process being managed. I still have pictures of the sticky notes that I laid out on my dining room table, that kind of walk through what does it take to get something fixed. And I think people who haven't been in that seat, in that experience, right, with a full restaurant on Friday night,
Yes,
and the walk-in goes down, people who haven't actually experienced that, I think assume that something breaks, you call a repair company, they come out, they fix it, life is great. Very rarely does an R&M process of any kind follow that happy path, right? And so what we heard a lot from operators was things always break at the worst possible moment. When I call a service company, even if I have a relationship with them, I have to hound them, I have to follow up. If it's after hours, I'm getting an answering service who doesn't know anything about my business. They're paging a tech, right? We've all been in that Friday night hell, And so being in that headspace, this is just it's an extremely painful reactive process for operators. And so, one thing that we found in all those conversations is also that operators just don't have this isn't a high priority until suddenly it is. It's the number one priority in the restaurant. And so as a GM or a chef or a director of operations, you're running around doing 50 other things. And when something breaks, it's just blowing up your whole day. And so we found operators just really didn't have the time, the energy, or the insight to make better decisions and be proactive about R&M. They were just constantly reacting to it. It wasn't their fault, just that's just how the industry has been set up historically.
Bring me back to these sticky notes. I hope that you're able to share the sticky note photo with us so we can put it into the show notes,
Oh,
because
well.
I mean that's showing versus telling. And when you start to go down this pain point problem and you're writing it out, this aha moment of like, this problem is way bigger than we even imagined.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we're on those sticky notes.
Yeah, so we were mapping out, and I'll send them to you. You can post them. We were mapping out the workflow, what it takes to get something fixed, because the traditional solutions to this problem, and sadly, still the most common solutions to these problems are operators when they get to a certain size buying software to track repairs. And we can talk about why that doesn't actually solve the problem. But what we wanted to understand is what's the customer experience? What's the operator's journey when they're trying to solve a problem like this? And all of the pain points, all of the friction isn't because they don't have a tool to write down what's broken, right? That's not the real problem. The real problem is in the communication with the vendor, in the communication with other shift leaders, in the communication up the chain and the approvals, right? Getting quotes approved, getting approval for dispatching a vendor, right? Depending on how much money you're allowed to spend in your restaurant. All of that kind of friction, finding good vendors, right? Finding good service companies, because all of the solutions that existed in the market at that point and all of the other solutions that still exist in the market, right, outside of 86 are monetizing or creating friction, or usually both, between the operator and the service company. And so a lot of the pain that we felt in those conversations, what we were trying to map out in that process map, is where are those pain points and how often are they related to vendor relationships? How often are they related to internal communication problems, right? All of those things that create friction in the process. And that helped us understand that a solution here couldn't just be software. There's a place for software. I love software. I have a technology background. It's great. We need great software. We need great data. We provide both, in my opinion. But there are so many friction points here that aren't solved with tech. They're solved with people and better process. And so I see operators a lot. We did in the early days, and I still see it now. I see them a lot trying to solve a people and process problem with technology. And that's a recipe for failure.
Can you share, first of all, what is CMMS and why is it broken?
Good question. No bullshit zone. That's why we're here.
We get to the truth. We want to
We
know.
get to the heart of the truth. So, CMMS, Computerized Maintenance Management System. The acronym kind of tells you everything you need to know. CMMS platforms have existed for probably 30 years at this point, and they're really designed to be ticketing systems. So think of like a help desk ticket, right? You submit a support request through CMMS. So all of the frontline staff in your restaurant, or some of them, have access to being able to submit when there's a problem, when a repair needs to happen. And then there often is a vendor marketplace component to CMMS platforms. So that means if I'm looking for a great plumber in Santa Barbara, I can access that platform's vendor network, right? A limited set of vendors that they've collected in different markets. And I can pay for the privilege of accessing that vendor and dispatching that vendor for a problem that I'm trying to solve. So CMMS in a nutshell is software and a network of vendors usually that you can plug into. The problems are vast. We can go into a lot more detail, but at the highest level, one of the core issues in R&M is that there's a shortage of skilled tradespeople. So you don't have enough plumbers, electricians, food equipment service people in the industry. And so what's happened, and this has just been accelerated by COVID, right, by the pandemic, is you have a shortage of skills. And so response times are suffering and costs are going up, right? The cost to service something is up. Our data shows it's up 31% since the pandemic. So it's getting more expensive and taking longer to get things fixed because there aren't enough people out there. And so what happens is that the service company has a lot more power in the buying relationship with the operator. And so what all these platforms have done is they've monetized the service side, right? They'll sell you software for a SaaS fee, and then they'll make money from the service company. They'll mark up invoices, they'll charge per invoice fees. The vendors themselves will charge more money through the platform because they're being put through hoops, right? They're having to jump through hoops, which raises their costs even further. So what CMMS has done is essentially hurt the relationship between service companies and end customers by trying to make it transactional, right? So now you have a hospitality driven industry that is based on relationships, trying to work with a traditional service based industry, right? Service companies who both want and value relationships, but can't get them because there's a third party in the middle who's intermediating that whole relationship. And it creates friction. It erodes trust. It has eroded a ton of trust, right, between those operators. It causes people to play games with the numbers, with how much they're charging, all of those things. And it raises cost, most importantly, for the operator, because working through these third parties is more expensive, more complicated, more burdensome for the service company. And so, of course, it's going to cost more money to do business that way.
Hey everyone, Avi Gorin, CEO and co-founder of Marquee, and I want to talk about the customer journey for a second. You never know as a restaurant owner where your guests are truly coming from. End of the day, we do see some patterns around two types of search behaviors: direct versus discovery. Direct search, for an example, would be jumping into Google and saying Cali barbecue hours, right? I know where I want to go to eat, but I'm missing a key detail. I need a little bit more information. Discovery, which is the bulk of searches, is barbecue in San Diego, restaurants near me, takeout near me, right? One of the best ways to be found for more discovery searches is leveraging keywords. Reviews are basically free content for you to leverage. Think about keywords that are relevant to your brand, your location, and include as many of those in your review responses as possible, right? How can you go about doing this? Let's set up reports, utilize tools like Google Trends, find out what's going on in your area and how you can help leverage these keywords and review responses, because someone else is doing that, right? If you need some examples, you could do anything from including summer menu, gluten-free menu, leverage specific menu items like the dreaded and beloved spice pumpkin anything in your review responses, right? Let them know what's coming. Let your reviewers know something they should come back and try. And of course, if all of this just seems overwhelming and daunting because you're already running a restaurant and have enough on your plate, just leverage the team at Marquee to do this for you. We handle all of this. We're experts in this space. We can automate this so it's just another item that you know you are taking care of. Again, that's marquee.com, marquii.com. No U. However, we did recently buy marquii.com. So if you do misspell it, we got you. You'll still find us. We can still help you.
The results are in. National Restaurant Association show. Kyle and Sarah and myself, we were at the Davos sales tax booth and we were polling restaurant owners on the floor. This was a very unscientific poll, but the results are resounding. Restaurant owners do not like sales tax. Nobody likes sales tax. Doesn't matter what business owner you are, small business, big business. Davo automates the sales tax process. We are so grateful that Davo is the sponsor of this show. They automate sales tax at our Cali barbecue restaurants. It is $50 a month. It integrates with all the major point of sale partners, including Toast. So if you want to sleep at night, if you want to not worry about sales tax, go to Davo, check them out, Davo Sales Tax. Let us know how they're helping automate your sales tax in your restaurant so that we can share your Davo story on digital hospitality. Can you share a story about one of the first customers' logos that you added that had a magical 86 repair moment?
Yes, that's a great question. So in the very early days of 86, we were beta testing the solution. And one of the things we did before we had built any tools, any data, anything, is I was myself and my co-founder Joe were taking calls from restaurant operators when something broke. Because we wanted to live it. We wanted to understand the process. And I remember one of our first customers was in Detroit, full service concept, I think maybe 5 units, pretty small operator, but more upscale operator. And their executive chef in one of their locations, I think was pretty skeptical of getting help with this problem, right? Of us being able to make it better for her. And her name was Nikki. I remember this very well. And she called about a down oven. It was a Friday afternoon, pretty hectic, right? Kind of problem. And she called or sent me a text and said, our oven's down. I called her and we walked through some of the, kind of common troubleshooting issues that we had pulled together to support operators. She couldn't get it back to, working. She had checked the gas line. It was turned on, right? The pilot was lit. The thing wasn't getting hot. So I called the first service company. This was one of the first times I had to experience this pain for myself as an 86 employee, right? And I called the first service company and it's like, yeah, we'll call you back. And half an hour goes by and 45 minutes goes by, right? And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon now, right? The place is going to start filling up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Nothing, right? So I just said, screw it, we're moving on, right? And I probably called 5 or 6 service companies and finally got one to get out there. They were out by 5 o'clock, fixed the problem, and I got a text from her in the middle of their rush, thanks so much. Everything's great. It's fixed. She was over the moon that we were able to get it resolved that quickly. And again, this is about relationships. It's about the human sense of urgency, right? About pushing. This is not a result she would have gotten from putting a request into a piece of software. It just doesn't happen.
Can you talk about the operators that are taking a proactive approach to repairs and maintenance on their P&L that are engaging with you? What kind of results are they seeing?
Yeah, so it goes back to what we were talking about here with CMMS platforms and the other kind of legacy solutions that have existed. We work with operators, of all sizes, really. And when we look at, larger operators, what I'd call mid-market or large, enterprise scale operators who are using a third-party platform to manage repairs, what we see is that they're leaving money on the table with R&M. A couple of different ways. The biggest delta we see is with the cost of service. So we've run dozens of different analyses for different operators. And what we see consistently is between a 15% and a 26% higher cost for service that those operators are paying in their markets than our customers are paying in the exact same markets.
Wow.
And in some cases, we have access to the exact same service companies, right? But it's the friction, the lack of friction through the 86 process. I think that makes a big difference for the service company. But also it's optimizing the vendor mix. If I make money from service companies, right, and they're paying me to recommend them, then of course I'm just going to recommend whoever's driving the most revenue for me. My business is going to be built that way. Our model is to not make any money from service companies. We recommend service companies only based on their performance. So I have cost and quality data that I can use to help an operator optimize the mix of vendors that they're working with. And that drives a ton of value, right? We ran this analysis for a 320 unit QSR operator a couple of months ago, and it was a 26% delta for them. That's $5 million just in OpEx spend that they're leaving on the table there. So when you combine the vendor mix with things like troubleshooting effectively, so you're avoiding service calls in the first place, managing warranties effectively, right? Understanding when stuff should be covered by a manufacturer and running that process to ground. There are just all the communication gaps, right? There's just so many little opportunities, little decisions that are being made in the moment that operators can make more proactively with better insights and a better process. And, I always tell our team, that's what we sell. We just sell a better process. That's ultimately what 86 is in the business of providing our customers. We're a tech company. We have a ton of data. That's the interesting, sexy part of the business. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we sell a better process to help operators manage this proactively.
That's awesome. I think for me, understanding digital storytelling and the people that I respect and admire, that I follow on YouTube, that I listen to their shows, that I watch on LinkedIn, Andrew Smith comes to mind from Savory Fund. I think, it was a big signal for me about 86 Repairs, about where you guys were going. Can you share the Andrew Smith Savory Fund story?
Yeah, great guy. Andrew is one of my favorite people. I was just in Salt Lake with him last week. Savory came to us 3+ years ago, and they were running a CMMS platform. We'll protect the innocent here, but they were running a big CMMS platform that everybody's probably heard of. And, I would say it was working okay for them, but I don't think that, the facilities team, the operations team there really felt like they were getting any value out of it. And we piloted with them. We piloted 86 with them and some of their concepts. And Savory was quite a bit smaller back then as well. They've grown a ton during that time. And so Andrew and I connected as part of that relationship. I wasn't actually involved in those early conversations with Savory. One of the folks on our sales team worked with them, set up this pilot, and we got, after 6 months with them, we got rave reviews, right? From their operators, from frontline staff. Their FM team was a lot more efficient. They didn't have to scale up, continue scaling up their facilities management team in order to manage R&M effectively. And so I think that caught the attention of the executive team. And then I got connected with Andrew, after that, and we started talking and have been working together ever since.
That's awesome. I think for me, that's one of the things we realize, how big of an opportunity it is that we're all trying to solve. Putting on a show like this, trying to reach people all over the globe, knowing that there's restaurateurs that struggle with a broken ice machine and a broken walk-in, but understanding how early we are. We truly are early, and the companies that we find that we believe in, that we want to share their stories, it gets us excited because we know that this is just the beginning. When you look at where 86 Repairs is today and where you're going to be in 3 years, what does that vision look like?
Yeah, great question. Something I spend a lot of time thinking about. Part of the value that we've always seen in 86 is because we're putting ourselves in the center of the R&M process with our customers, we collect a tremendous amount of data that has a tremendous amount of value in the industry. And that data has never really existed because, again, the existing solutions haven't optimized for tracking data, tracking information, getting insights. They've optimized for monetizing vendor relationships, right? Making money. And so for not for the operator. So being able to leverage that data is always something that we've been excited about. And that data lets us do a couple of things. One, the more we collect, the better advice we're giving to our customers. So the better advice we can give when a customer gets a quote for service in a particular market, we can give them advice on whether that quote is in line with the market average. When a customer is replacing equipment, right? Number one, we can recommend when it's time, when they shouldn't keep spending money servicing something, but it's time to actually, do capital planning and understand which equipment should be replaced. And then we also can leverage that data to help the operator make other strategic decisions about how to manage the operation. So repair, replace is one of them, but understanding predictive spend, right? What does cost forecasts look like? How do we manage accruals more effectively if we're a CFO or a finance director? Because that's a pain point, right, in the industry. So all this information we're capturing helps us day to day do a better and better job managing R&M for our customers, with our customers. It lets us put tools in the hands of larger operators who have in-house facilities teams who need to be empowered with those insights, right? Who really can't capture those insights because the data is lacking in the space. And then it also helps us with other stakeholders in the industry, understanding how equipment is performing right out in the market. Getting access to that kind of data is something that's never existed before. Understanding the reliability of different brands, right, and down to models of equipment. How are they performing? So for me, the future vision of 86 is getting more and more predictive and proactive in the way we use that data to help operators be much, much more predictive and proactive in the way they manage R&M.
I mean, it's really exciting for me to think about the equipment process because it's just they're having been a restaurant owner, we're not proactive about anything. Like
Right.
we barely even know where the warranty goes when we unbox. Now we do a lot of unboxing, obviously. I haven't unboxed any equipment. We have unboxed our Old Hickory smokers when we added to the smokehouse. But can you talk about the warranty process? How do you guys help with that?
Yeah. So again, their data is the first problem. Most operators just don't have an asset inventory of all the equipment and infrastructure in their
What's the
restaurant.
percentage of new of people that have it and versus don't have it?
I've seen everything from, well, in terms of people who have the inventory, zero. I mean, I've never talked to a restaurant operator who said, I have a list of all the equipment in my restaurants.
If you're listening to this, please send me a message. I would love to see your inventory list.
Yes.
I will have you on the show to talk about how you possibly managed to do it.
Exactly. I would love to meet that person if they
Yeah,
exist. Please
sure.
reach out. What we hear a lot is, yeah, I started that project and I just never got it over the finish line, right? Or when I closed the store, then I had to go and inventory all the stuff, right, for the bankers or for the buyer or for whoever. So we hear a lot of, again, reactive there. But that's the gap on warranty is it's not the operator's fault. You just don't know when certain things are under warranty. A cooler typically has a longer warranty on the compressor, right? You might have a cooler with a 2 or 3 year warranty on it, but the compressor is 5 years. And so if you're not running those warranty checks, a lot of other software platforms promise that they're doing this, but they're just using generic information in the service manual, right? We're actually looking up the warranty with the OEM. So when you have a better foundation of data there and you know what's under warranty, that avoids unnecessary cost because I guarantee frontline staff either don't know, don't have time to check, or can't find the information, right, when that service decision is being made. And so they're dispatching service for something that should be covered, which doesn't just cost you a service visit, but it, in many cases, will void the warranty to have a non-authorized service provider working on that equipment. On the flip side, you might also decide not to get something covered under warranty because the lost revenue from having it down, right, isn't worth capturing that warranty savings. So those are the decisions that we help operators make. And we find roughly just under 6% of service requests that come through our platform have a warranty attached to them. So that's real money.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a crazy repair story?
Yes. I have lots of crazy repair stories.
Isn't every repair a crazy repair?
I mean, mostly. Yeah,
Mostly. Nothing ever breaks on Monday morning, 9 a.m.
Yeah. We had a customer, before they were a customer, they had in one of their locations, they had a handyman who they used for everything. It's a pretty classic story when you're a smaller operator, especially. I was not expecting it in this size operation, but they had a handyman who was doing a bunch of work for them. That person was cheap, right? He was responsive, right? So they liked a lot about the relationship. When we were talking with them about bringing 86 on board, one of the things they said was, well, we have this handyman, we rely on him for a lot of stuff. I don't know that we need to use outside service companies. And in the middle of the back and forth there for a couple of days, I got a text message with a picture from the operator of that location. There was a picture of a gas line, a rubber gas line that had been run down the side of a salamander. So for those of you who don't know, a salamander is basically an oven, right? That gets very hot. And it was a gas line running next to the salamander. And he sent me a picture of it as it was starting to melt. And he caught it and obviously knew it was a problem and dealt with it. But those are the kinds of stories we hear a lot is crazy things that people do in restaurants, whether it's the staff or the service companies. And because it's a tough industry and we're cutting corners left and right, We're leaving money on the table. We're hurting the operation, right, by not managing this more effectively. So, I can laugh at those stories, but it would be heartbreaking if there was a fire in that restaurant, somebody who's worked their entire career, right, to build this business, and to have that place burn up because of a poor decision to save $300.
Yeah.
That would be a big shame.
Why do you think repair and maintenance, why has cost increased so much recently?
I think it goes back to, on the labor side, the shortage of technicians. I think that's a big problem. There was quite a bit of supply chain chaos in food and beverage equipment post-pandemic as well. I don't know if you remember, but there were some stories about, big operators hoarding equipment because they couldn't get it, right? It was so hard to buy equipment. The lead times were so long. At one point, I heard lead times on fryers were like 40 weeks. So there's just a lot of problems there. That affects service costs because of parts availability. So the supply chain issues with parts really drove up cost and hurt service levels. And then now you have more junior technicians, right, who are in the field. When service companies can recruit or train people up, they're doing that. And you have more junior folks in the industry. They're not replacing the senior folks quickly enough, but you have more junior people in the service repair industry, and they're just not as experienced. They're not as good. And so that means repeat trips, right? You have to come back. You don't have the right part. It takes longer to do the repair, right? And the stuff is being charged by the hour generally. So I think all of those factors, all those macro issues have really sort of conspired against restaurant operators.
So I had the privilege of sitting down with Aman Narang, the co-founder of Toast, and talking about the origin story of Toast. And he was sharing a story about how him and Steve and John, they were sitting on their couch in his basement at the beginning of stages of trying to build this out and trying to prove it to the people around them and to their wives that this was a viable business. And, everyone was telling them that it wasn't. And it was like a dark time, like they didn't know if this was actually going to work out. Yeah. Do you have any dark time where you and Joe like didn't know or face some challenges with 86?
I didn't think this was a good idea in the beginning. I thought this was a terrible idea. It initially, when Joe started talking to me about it, I thought, well, I was skeptical that there's enough pain here, right, to really warrant building a business, right? People have a lot of problems that they won't spend money solving. Yeah. And that kind of goes into the R&M piece, and this gets a little bit more into the business side, right? Into what it means to start a company. You can have lots of people telling you what a great idea it is, and how awesome it would be to have this problem solved. But if they're not willing to pay to solve that problem, then it really doesn't matter. And so I was really skeptical of that when we started sitting down with operators, and I started hearing the pain in the ass comments, right? That's when it got sort of the next level of confidence. Okay, there's something here. Let's dig further, right? And so I think it wasn't like there was a moment where I had confidence or lost it. It was sort of a gradual, increase in confidence up until we had our first paying customers, and pulled a team together to start supporting them and continued growing. So 86 is we're all incredibly fortunate to have been on a pretty wild journey. There've been lots of ups and downs, like there are with any company, especially growing at this pace. But we are incredibly fortunate to work with some amazing partners, like some of the folks we've talked about here, who believe in what we're doing, believed in it in the early days, knew we were small, knew that it was risky to work with us, but to be able to go from that to scaling, to having over 2,000 customers now around the country, that's been an amazing journey.
When you think about where you're going, how does 86 Repairs become more of a conversation piece when people are evaluating their tech stack? I've never seen, one of the most popular pieces of content that we've ever created was our tech stack of who we are, like literally going to Chicago National Restaurant Association show. They asked me to speak, and I went with Stover and Eric, and I'm like, well, let's just write it down on paper. And we started writing it down and realized there are all these things that we don't even realize that are part of our tech stack, but we need to prioritize the pillars. And, when I think about the work that you guys are doing, I know that we need to start talking more about repairs and maintenance, but it's not something that we think about until it's too late, until it's like Friday night. So how do we get that? How do we move that conversation so that people are thinking about this when they're evaluating their tech stack as a whole?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so funny you mentioned that about the stack. When I was at RLC this year, Restaurant Leadership Conference, I had breakfast with Derek Rosenbaum,
Oh, yeah.
and Derek pulled out a piece of paper,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Here's all the tech I use," and there's, I don't know, 40 different tech solutions on this page. And we talked about that, and I heard that over and over again. I mean, just like you, really the beginning of this year, I started hearing operators talking about integrations between tech and how hard it's been to manage the data and the connection points between all of this technology, and then of course all the different interfaces.
Yeah.
It's interesting, when we started at 86, one of the things I heard from operators is, don't give me another app. I have too many apps to manage my restaurant, and this was 2018, right?
Yeah.
So it's only worse now. So so I think it's a great question. How we get into the stack is, this is not 86 is not a product that CTOs, CIOs are buying, directors of IT are buying generally. This is something that is helping operations teams take repairs off their team's plate, help reduce the friction, the frustration, the time that staff are spending managing R&M. And it's something that helps the financial stakeholders and operations leadership, senior leadership, make better decisions, save money, all those things. And so that's where the conversations usually start for us. How we build into the tech stack is through integrations that make our process even easier for the operator. So, for example, integrating with the financial system so we can pull all the invoicing data and give great granular real-time cost insights to the operator. So for us, it really is about living in that ecosystem and integrating with platforms like Restaurant 365, right? Plate IQ, things like that. Margin Edge, Meez, right? Lots of great software companies out there doing amazing work for operators. Being connected into those systems so that our customers don't have to take any extra steps, right, in their day-to-day. That's the best thing I think we can do to support operators.
And what do you think is the takeaway that you want somebody that is listening to this show to know about 86 repairs?
I would say, give us a look, even if you think things are going well in R&M, because I think there's a lot of hidden cost and hidden pain in this process that operators don't always see and can't always quantify. And when they start questioning the solutions, the process they've always been running, that's when good ideas come to the surface. And the conclusion may not be sign up with 86 repairs, right? Obviously, we'd love to have more operators as customers. The solution, the value that comes out of that process might just be, here's a way I can tighten up my workflow, my process. Here's a way I can train my team more effectively to manage R&M. Here are small things I can do to get more proactive. And I think that is absolutely worth, sticking your head under the hood a little bit and getting deeper on this. There's a lot of money on the table that operators are leaving on the table from not managing R&M proactively. And I think if you start poking around, digging around there, and you know where to look, you will find it.
That's awesome. And anybody that's listening to this on Wednesday and on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we do a digital hospitality room. So it's a chance for you to come on stage, LinkedIn Live. It's the Rising Tide. You can follow Cali BBQ Media for links to the room. You can follow me at any channel at Sean P. Walchef. I'm weirdly available. Daniel, please let people know how's the best place to find you. LinkedIn?
LinkedIn's great. I'm on LinkedIn. 86 Repairs is on LinkedIn. We're happy to engage in a conversation there. If anyone wants to just talk about R&M or, look at 86, we're happy to chat.
Awesome. And if you have a crazy R&M story, we love stories. So send me a link and we'll get you on the show to share your crazy story. And hopefully you guys can find a solution with 86 Repairs. Daniel, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. As always, guys, stay curious, get involved. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We'll catch you next week.